many years ago, NACDL came to Texas to talk about litigation because Texas was one of the states that provided zero money for indigent defense. We didn't have one system, we didn't have 254 systems, one in each county. We had a system for each courtroom, each judge. It was a mess. And Texas is a tough state, as we all know, for criminal justice. But we had the good fortune of having a visionary, a leader with courage, who stood up for what was right and brought together in this state a bipartisan group in support of indigent defense reforms. Senator Ellis is far too modest. He mentions his staff, but his staff is working under a great leader, one who serves. He stands his ground while bringing others around, and he's got the wherewithal to do that. What was once decided on political patronage, every court managing its own method for appointing lawyers, was revealed in the light of day under the Fair Defense Act. The process was brought to the light of day, and it promised qualified counsel, not warm bodies with law licenses. It ended the practice of appointing newly minted lawyers to the poor because the money that it paid wasn't good enough, the time that was given wasn't sufficient for any lawyer with a conscience to take it on. It did away with this lean over the jury bar and plead mill practice in Texas. The Fair Defense Act clarifies and strengthens an attorney's ability to get reimbursement for their fees, experts, and investigation. Our work isn't done. We have a new administrator who's about to take office in a job overseeing indigent defense in a major metropolitan area, commenting that we don't need to raise rates for court-appointed counsel. We don't need to pay attorneys for jail visits. We can always find lawyers to do misdemeanor appointments for $25 an hour. What ignorance still in this enlightened day. This is today, and this time. The Texas Task Force is developing quality standards that will help guide the misguided, bringing accountability to indigent defense practices. Senator Ellis has brought with him to the Senate in 1990 his background in economic development, education, civil rights, responsible environment policy, tax cuts for middle course and workforce development, his background in Houston City Council, and as chief of staff for the late U.S. Congressman Mickey Leland, his law degree from UT and his master's in public affairs from the same university, brought this substantial man to an issue with no constituency, a man with a great deal of knowledge and experience and a great deal of leadership and service. He brings to practice all of these skills and experience. He also brings prestige to this award. With prior recipients, U.S. Representative John Conyers, Bobby Scott, Barney Frank, and former Texas Representative, the great late Maury Maverick. I'm going to be honored in a moment to give Senator Ellis the Champion of Justice and Legislation Award from NACDL. But I have a little treat first. A note from a friend of Senator Ellis, Barry Scheck. And if you'll bear with me, it's a little tongue-in-cheek. To my colleagues, I first met Rodney Ellis during his term as the first black governor of Texas. Naturally, among his first agenda items was the recommendation of the Board of Pardons and Parole to execute Ricky McGinn without first running DNA tests that could determine whether he was innocent or guilty. I told him we came to Texas for justice. He told me I was misinformed. He said he was a pro-death penalty investment banker. Had head of the Senate Finance Committee and knew next to nothing about these criminal justice issues. Besides, he proclaimed, he's always making this proclamation. Staying in execution or carrying criminal justice reform legislation is political insanity in Texas. It won't get him or any other politician votes or campaign contributions. Needless to say, he got Bush to stay McGinn's execution. Shrubs only stay. And 2 months later, when he walked Chris Ochoa out of prison in Austin, Rodney had arranged for a press conference at the Capitol with Randall Dale Evans, Ruth Brown, Jeanette Popp, who is the mother of the victim in the case where Chris Ochoa gave a false confession. And he announced an agenda of reform bills for the session, a post-conviction DNA testing statute, a ban on execution of the mentally retarded, the first Fair Defense Act, and compensation of the wrongly convicted. They all passed. I concluded, based on my experiences in New York, that the Texas state legislature was Athens, and Rodney was Pericles, or at the worst, a black Machiavelli, who had fire in his belly for social justice and knew how to get things done. So we made him chair of the board of directors of the Innocence Project, where he shrewdly rules supreme over a former Attorney General of the U.S., John Grisham, managing partners of major law firms and investment banks, and know-it-all criminal defense lawyers. Truth be told, he's a genius and liberty's last champion, where we need him the most. There is no more deserving honoree of our Champion of Justice Award. Senator Ellis, it's my privilege to bestow on you NACDL's Champion of Justice Legislative Award.
Thank you very much. I know a lot of my colleagues are saying, is she talking about him? Because they know from time to time, we all know this guy, Rodney Ellis, and he can be downright dangerous if given an opportunity to do so. I do want to say how proud I am to get this award. There are some very distinguished people, much more deserving than me. You've gotten this award in the past, and I'm very proud to join the ranks of them. Now, if I might, just a brief few comments, since you gave me the mic. And I'm going to have to fly out of here. I want to make the case that we have much, much more work to do. This is a working lunch, I'm telling you. You don't have a keynote speaker. My staff was working on me to get the Attorney General of the United States to come in, and I said, look, don't you read the papers? We're about to secede. Now, you're going to ask the Attorney General to come down here? But seriously, the person from Justice didn't come, and my staff told me that. Something that they did in Washington last week was quite interesting, where they had folks at the tables from all around the country. They pulled together people who were from a certain area, Texas region, somewhere close, to talk about an action plan on what you do next. When I left the symposium area and went up to my office, since this is being streamed, and I could watch it on television in my office, I was listening to some of the comments. I heard the representative from the county commissioners group make the case that we need to go to county commissioners court. And as I've walked around to a lot of people who believe like I do, it's amazing how we always go to folks who agree with us, right? We need to spend more time talking to people we need to persuade. And we don't have to do it in a hostile way. When I first put that Fair Defense Act in 1991, this building was controlled by Democrats. Democrats controlled virtually all of the statewide elected officials, the House and the Senate. I never got a hearing on that bill. When the bill passed in 1999, my Republican colleagues had quite a bit of influence. We had a Republican governor at that time. The fact that the bill was vetoed was something we took as an opportunity. That bill that was vetoed in 1999 became an issue on the campaign trail in the presidential debates. I remember wondering, thinking, is Governor Bush going to call my name out when they ask about this bill that he vetoed on indigent defense? But instead of just bragging and trying to make my colleagues be embarrassed because that veto became an issue in a presidential campaign, we used an element of humility and persuaded a lot of people, brought everyone to the table, and passed a pretty good bill. On the issue of funding on the state level, I'm not proud of the way we get the funding we have now.